All right, and we are live. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Patriarch with Mrs. Patriarch. How are you doing tonight?
Hi, everyone. Hope you're all doing good.
Excellent. So, yeah, we're just going to wait a minute for people to trickle in. Before I started this, I was notified that Apostolic Majesty is having a stream right now, so I didn't want to step on his toes too much. But I figure we'll just give it a minute for anyone to trickle on in. So as we're getting that set up, I figured I'd let you guys know kind of what we have planned for tonight. We're going to be talking, I thought about doing 3 different streams talking about, how to find somebody, then married life, then kids. But I figured I'd wrap the last 2 together into one stream, which is what we're doing tonight. So we're going to be talking about, transitioning from dating to marriage and also raising kids. So we're going to be doing, you're getting a twofer tonight. So that's what we got going on. If you guys can hear me in the chat, press 1. There's quite a bit of rain tonight, so I'm not sure if you guys can hear me okay. So sometimes the signal here isn't the best in the world. So if you hear us, press 1. Okay. Just going to. Anybody there? Can you hear us? There we go. All right, cool. Awesome. Very good. So if you guys are new to the show, this is my channel. I have been on, I was out on Academic Agents Unpopular Opinions last night, and we talked about kind of is Americanism globalism, essentially. So if you guys want to go check that out, you're welcome to. He also reviewed one of my videos on the most recent cigar stream as well. And I have also released part 4 of my Machiavelli series. So that's sort of my new content that I've made. Aside from that, yeah, that's what I've been doing. If you're haven't yet, I would encourage you guys to subscribe to me on Odyssey in case this channel gets nuked for whatever reason. And you know how YouTube is or can be. Yeah, just as a safeguard. So we also, I believe, have Super Chats active. So if you do want your question as a priority or donate to the show, help me buy my kid diapers, you're welcome to send one. You're welcome to send one of those also. So I guess we'll begin here in just a second. Just getting some things organized. Yeah, today was a pretty interesting day weather-wise. Yesterday it was very calm and quiet, and then we just had this crazy cold front come in. It looked like smog coming from the Lonely Mountain. It was pretty intense. But I guess we'll get started now. So first off, we will be talking about matrimony and sort of the transition from normal dating situation to marital relations. So I guess we'll begin by asking the missus here, in your opinion, how would you consider dating to be different from married life? In what key ways?
Well, with dating, you can still kind of be a little bit selfish because it is still, all about you. But once you get married, that changes your interests and not your interests, but the way you perceive things changes because now you are with someone else and you're kind of building a life together. So it's much more in that way where you can't really afford to be selfish. You can't really think of yourself only. You need to think of your spouse and how your actions and your moods affect them. Babe, what do you think?
I think that's probably the key thing. So when you're dating someone, yeah, it's you meet at your convenience essentially, and
yeah,
and you're able to sort of play to your own tune to a large extent.
You put your best foot forward always.
Yeah. Because you're, you're trying to seal the deal essentially. But yeah, as the wife said, you have to sacrifice a lot of your interests, and that's something that that does take a bit of getting used to. So I would say that is probably the biggest thing in terms of transitioning to marriage that you could look out for. In terms of just, whether it's good or bad, it's just sort of how it works. Once you live with somebody, you have to all of a sudden change your priorities. And yeah, I think that's a perfectly natural, normal, healthy thing. But it is something to be aware of. Like you can't play as much video games as you used to. The chicks aren't going to like that. Also, you just have to be more cognizant of them and their needs. So that's definitely something to be on the lookout for. How else would you say things are different in like a positive sense compared to dating?
Well, you have a more grounded sense of security when you are married. Not that you don't really have it when you're dating, or I should say, dating the right person. But when you get married, it's like you said, you seal the deal. So you don't have to worry about, some other chick stealing your boyfriend or that sort of thing. So, and that's nice, let you sleep at night, sleep easier.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's the thing. You don't. There's less anxiety when you're married, I would say.
Definitely.
You're much less worried about them getting spooked and like, oh, if I say something, will they get mad? And if they get mad, they're not going to like me. If they don't like me, she's gonna leave me for Rodney. That's not going to happen. So that is a good positive change. It really sort of adds peace of mind in a way that you don't get with dating. There's also it's a deeper sense of satisfaction, I would say.
Yeah.
It's different, like the high emotions when you're dating, because you're separated from each other for however long, and you come together, and it's like, wow, this person who I seldom see. And in our case, we were dating long distance for a while. I remember one time we were separated for 9 months, and when you're gone, you just can't wait to see them again. It seems like forever. And in our case, we're a pretty atypical example, but I think that sort of phenomenon is present in all sort of dating relationships, where when you finally get a chance to be with them, it's just the best thing in the world and whatnot. But when you get married, you get used to each other, and you start finding it's just the temperature gets turned down a little bit, because you can't live at that high octane infatuation all the time.
Yeah, you
can't. And
it's normal.
Yeah, it's healthy too. You need to prioritize other things, right? So especially when you have a kid, now you need to prioritize your kid. You need to prioritize work. You got practicalities you need to deal with. These are our bills. How are we going to pay for this? What do we need to get? What's missing? So all that is a perfectly normal transition to married life, I would say. So going on to the next point, Lauren, what would you say are some difficulties transitioning to marriage? So we've talked about sort of general change, but what would you say are some difficulties that are more unique to married couples and not so with a dating situation?
Well, the first one I would think of is living with someone for the first time. I mean, I grew up in my parents' home, and then only after we got married did I live with you, essentially. So that was something new to me, something that I had to get used to. Not having my own space, always having to be, conscious of what you were doing and your feelings and that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I remember when after we got married, we had a little bit of originally our plan was to move back to Alaska, But we had a bit of a health scare, so I had to, kind of put that on hold. And, we ended up staying in South Africa anyways, but came down here, didn't really have any prospects or anything. So her and we stayed at our parents' house for the first bit. And, we're just sharing this one bedroom. And, after a while of just sharing the same room, you get a little bit of, you want your own space. And you're like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Exactly. So you want your own space, and, it's a perfectly natural, normal human thing. It's just that old phrase, familiarity breeds contempt, not in a healthy relationship, but familiarity does, add to opportunities for annoyance, I would say.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And, that doesn't mean you don't love each other and whatnot, but you're going to get in you're going to grind each other's gears a little bit more than when you're dating. So
Yeah.
I would say that's a thing. And also the way, one difficulty, which I think every married person goes through, and she's already hinted at this, is when you do get married, you got your own habit and your own routines and your own way of doing things or not doing things, right? And now that you have a spouse, you got to compromise. And it's a bit of a learning process, because sometimes what'll happen is you'll be doing something that was sort of your old habit, and it annoys your spouse, and you don't know you're doing it, and they get annoyed because you're doing it, and you're like, "Oh, sorry, babe." And I think that's probably usually a guy thing. Like that seems to be sort of the stereotype. Like the guy's got his own weird idiosyncratic way of doing things. Then his wife's like, "Hey, why are you doing this? Why are you leaving your underwear on the floor?" That seems like a small thing, but it does,
It does get to you after a while.
It does get to you after a while. Like, my poor long suffering wife, there's been so many times where she'd be like, "Hey, you need to, like I'll leave my shirt on the floor or something." She'll say, "You need to pick this up." Just think, "Oh, okay. Yeah, of course." And I'm not trying to ignore her. I want to do that, but it's just, I've been doing it for, 20 something years, and trying to unlearn that and become more civilized, I think it's a bit of a process. And of course, I guess that's the other thing. Marriage civilizes a man to a certain extent. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, it does civilize you guys. Not all of you, though, eh?
Not all of us.
Not all of you.
Civilizes us somewhat. But on the other hand, too, with the women, it also sort of helps, like I said, provide them that sort of security and peace of mind. So we get civilized, and the women get a nice sort of stable environment. So it's a nice trade-off there. But yeah, I guess that's sort of a difficulty that a lot of people have to go with. You got your habits that you need to fix and whatnot. You got to find ways of sort of not annoying each other, and stuff like that. That's pretty.
Having more responsibilities.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yes, having more responsibilities. It's really easy when you're a guy living on your own, or a woman for that matter, and you got let's say you got your living situation taken care of when you're living with your parents. And when you're a guy, you're just sort of, your whole life is just work and recreation, essentially. Maybe visiting your grandma, once every couple of weeks or something. But your obligations now are, to another person. It's not just about you. It's what you have to provide and do for somebody else, and that goes for both halves. So, yeah. With me, in our sort of situation, I was used to sort of splitting things with roommates, sort of like 50-50. But now, when you're sort of living with the spouse, you play it a bit more on sort of what's fair, and in a more sort of a communist sense. But not really. But and also, you're expected to handle certain things that she's not as equipped to handle. And likewise with her responsibilities. Like she's much better at cooking than I am, for example. And that's in her wheelhouse. And it works out good, but you sort of end up sliding into your own niche and sort of finding your spot into that. Particularly if you're doing your own things, it can be sort of a bit of a challenge to try and find out where your particular spot is. So correcting or adjusting, I shouldn't say correct, but adjusting your behavior to accommodate your spouse is a difficulty you got to get used to. And also finding your spot in the marriage is also a difficulty. You got anything to add to that?
Communicate. I mean, that's the best thing you can do. Just talk to each other.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't smell, what the next person is feeling. So, talk. I'm sure that he will agree when I tell him that there's times when I will nag for the same thing over and over. But you know what? If you don't nag, it doesn't get done. So, it's just one of those things. It kind of just happens when you get married. It is something that guys tend to do, is forget or just, I don't know, just ignore something that you say that is important to you, but not necessarily really all that important to them. And they don't mean to be mean about it. It's just that it's just not as important. So, there are those times of a wife would need to essentially nag to get things done. But it's just one of those things.
Yeah, and apparently you got someone agreeing with you here from Poe the person. With a man and a woman, the woman will usually have the higher standards for cleanliness and order, but not always. Can be the opposite too. I think that's correct.
Yeah, definitely.
It can be the opposite. Like I've met women who are slobs, but it usually is, the guy who has to sort of clean up his act. I think it's a stereotype for a reason, essentially. But so going on, sort of difficulties transitioning. Can you think of anything else? Did you have anything else that you written down for this? Okay, I'm trying to think. On her point with communication, that's sort of an important aspect. Talking and sort of being very clear about what your expectations are up front, as we talked about last time, is good for finding a partner. And it is also good for maintaining a partner.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, maintaining a happy marital environment. So if you do have a problem, you need to speak up. And, we both do that. Something will happen and I'll bring it up, or she'll bring it up. And, that's good. That's how you figure out each other's mojo and their vibes and what you guys need to do to sort of make each other happy.
Yeah. And sometimes with women, you need to kind of coax it out of them.
Yeah. They won't tell you straight up half the time. Yeah. Like, it's that old thing, hey, are you fine? Yeah, no, I'm fine. I don't believe you. And, you wait a while, and then later on in the day, the thing comes up again. It's like, why are you doing this or whatever? And it's like, aha, so that's what it was. So you got to be a little bit of a Sherlock Holmes sometimes to find out exactly what it is. But, that's just one of those things. It's
just how women are.
Yeah.
Most of us.
And I just think just sort of knowing that is as a fact is it's good to be aware of. So that's kind of, I would say, sort of one of their issues I think women will sort of have to get over in marriage. But with men, I think the issue they have to get over is sort of being laser focused on what it is they want to do and just putting aside all these other things, right? All these other things that are also important to the household, but don't directly line up with whatever your task is at a given time. So, if you think about like a primitive hunter-gatherer society, right? how did that go? So the dudes, they get up, they grab their spears, and then they go hunt mammoths all day. And then they come back. One job, hyper-focused. And what were the women doing? They were doing 10 different other tasks at the camp, right? So they're picking berries, they're watching babies, they're making food, they're mending clothes, they're doing all these other things. They're trying to make it a nice place to live because they got to be there for most of the day. So in modern times, especially, I don't think much has changed with people in all that time. I think men are pretty. It's when you get focused on something or you think something's important, you tend to zone in on that one thing,
which can be annoying to the spouse.
Yes, which can be annoying to the spouse, and you just need to be aware of that, right? So, and that's also that can be a good thing in a marriage because that sort of helps give the, let's say the husband in this example in sort of a more traditional family structure, that can give the husband a lot of drive to like really go for something, work extra hard or, work on his side gig or whatever it is. But the downside to that is if you neglect to pay attention to these other things, that can be a problem and cause strain. It just can. So what was it that your pastor said when we were what was those two things that he said?
A woman needs attention and affection, and a man needs
respect.
And what was the second one?
I think that was mostly it. It was respect and particularly in company. But so a man needs to feel he's respected in the marriage. He needs to feel like his wife takes him seriously and he's not just, some dope who, or some cuck or anything like that. He needs to feel like he's sort of in charge to a certain degree.
And needed.
And needed and useful.
Yeah. And
relied upon to a certain extent. But the woman needs affection and attention. And that, I think, that's sort of the fine line you need to walk because, the man will, he'll love his spouse, but, maybe he's like we said, maybe he's just laser focused on work or something or model airplanes or something. And, it doesn't mean he doesn't love his wife, that he spends a lot of time on these things, but his wife will feel that way. She'll feel like she's not important to him or she'll feel unloved. And she doesn't feel, and she might not be getting that attention and affection she needs to really thrive in the marital relationship.
And just to add on to that, attention doesn't necessarily mean like what you typically think of, like sitting in front of someone's face and giving them your full attention. What it can also be is just knowing that your spouse needs a break or needs spa day, something like that, something that your spouse, that's important to them. So just giving them that is also a way of giving them attention because you acknowledge that this is what the person likes, what they need, and you're giving that to them. So it's not just sitting in a company and giving them the usual type of attention. So that's also something to keep in mind.
Yeah, no, and it can just be something simple like you don't have to. That it doesn't really mean you got to bring them flowers and roses all the time. What it means is they need to feel like they're an important part of your life, and
that they matter.
And that can be as simple as, if she's stressed out or she's a little frazzled and she just needs me time. You take the kid and you give her an hour to herself so she can sort of relax and decompress. It means when you, and this is another thing for you dudes and a reminder for myself. If you see that the house is a little messy and you got a free moment, clean it up or clean up the mess. They really appreciate that. And it means that you're giving attention. You have attention to them and what's important to them. And also the affection thing, it can be, it can of course be physical, but it's also just more interest. You're interested in them and what they like and what, you want to be part of, forming a real social connection with them, right? It doesn't necessarily mean you have to have the same interests as we talked about last time, but it means you need to be able to have that X factor, that thing that made you like each other in the first place. And, for us, sometimes it can be something as simple as she'll be watching a documentary on like the production of the movie Alien or something. And,
I love that movie.
yeah. She'll be learning about the ins and outs of and production hell of like filming the underwater scenes in Abyss or something like that. And you just take time, out of whatever your hobby that you think is important or that you want to do as a dude. And you sit down and you watch and you ask her questions and you engage, and then you just play like, little games or whatever. You play Would You Rather or something. You just say, hey, do you want to go for a drive? Or you just sit down and talk, and that really, I think, makes women, or my woman at least, feel really appreciated or that the affection is really there. So you're giving her attention in a real social sense. It's not, and again, it's not that you're showering her with chocolates and roses and stuff, but what you are doing is you're making her an important part of your life, and she can feel it, and she likes that. And if you do that, she will respect you.
Agreed.
Yeah. So, and also, again, on the thing of respect, I think, as a wife, we've been ragging on dudes a little bit, but I do think in a certain way it's a little bit harder for guys to adjust to marriage a little bit than women, because I think women are a bit more sociable and stuff. But also, I would say with for any wives who may or may not listen, just sort of having patience or sort of understanding of kind of dudes and how we sort of operate is also good as well. And also sort of, if you're mad and whatnot and you don't want to like answer the question of like what's upset, just try to get over that. Try to answer the question. Tell us what's wrong. It's okay. We do really want to please, but I think the other thing too is you also have to you have to sort of figure out what will set each other off, both men and women. What will set each other off ahead of time and avoid doing that thing.
Yeah. Also, as women, if you get into an argument, sometimes we just want to still be mad at you guys.
Yeah.
I know that's bad, and I know we're not supposed to, but
it's going to happen.
Yeah. Like sometimes something can be resolved within an hour, but we still want to be mad afterwards just because we're still mad, and it takes us longer to cool down than it does guys. So just be mindful of that, and just, I don't know, just be understanding.
Yeah.
We are just hardwired that way.
Yeah. And they do get a little better with it with time.
Yeah.
But it's still going to happen every once in a while. And it's just sort of one of those things. And so I guess that's it for that. So that's sort of the difficulties of transitioning to marriage. So let's go on now to sort of the positives. What, in your opinion, are the best parts about being married?
Well, not to sound too gushy, but just being every day with your soulmate. I mean, that's one of the best things. You get to be with this person every day. I mean, yeah, sometimes he drives me crazy, but when he's not with me, I miss him.
Yeah, no, that's no bullshit either. Like, sometimes she'll have something that she needs to do in the city, and her parents live much closer to the city. So just for the sake of
convenience,
sometimes she'll need to be early in the city in the morning for something, and I can't take her because of work. So what we'll do is I'll drop her off at her parents' house, which is much closer, and then she'll go do it, and I'll pick her up the next day or whatever. And then whenever I come back, it's always, oh, babe, I missed you so much. Even if we did have like a little tiff earlier on, and as a dude, yeah, I'll notice whenever that happens, like, hey, this will be a great opportunity for me to, work on videos or whatever while they're gone, or do something else that's a little hard to do when you have family around all the time. And then whenever I get back, I'm just like, I'm just going to relax for a second. And then I feel depressed and like, I feel like I'm a bachelor again. And I'm like, this sucks. So it really is weird. And when we sort of do have those gaps where, she has to go away for a day or something, you really do sort of feel it the next morning. Like, just as a small thing, I don't really like sleeping in the bed when she's not here. I usually just sleep on the couch because I don't know, it just doesn't feel quite right there. Like I'm only taking up half the space. There should be two people here, and the other person isn't. So but that's the thing. You really do feel, I would say, the love you feel for your spouse.
It's just more. It's so much deeper.
Yeah, it's
Than versus dating.
Yeah, it's less of that sort of Romeo and Juliet bullshit. Like, like I said, sort of being on 11 whenever you guys, you don't see each other for a week, you come back and things are dialed up to 11 and you can't wait to see each other. But the thing is when you do commit your life to be with someone for the rest of your life, the level of love, the depths of it, being able to really stick to it and knowing that the other person wants to stick to it and that you are going to be for each other. You are going to make a family together. And, there'll be plenty of times where, whatever, I'm feeling a little down, and just having her here to support me, be like, hey, cheer up or whatever, or vice versa. It really does make you feel a whole lot better about life.
Yeah.
And it's moments like that where you really realize, you're like, wow, I would be in such bad shape without this person. And I love them and I thank them for it. And just all the things that they do. There's so many like just little things that you take for granted when you're married once you get into the zone. And when you take a moment to step back, you really appreciate all the selfless things that you do for each other,
That is true.
And that is, a real sign that you're in a good relationship.
And that you're growing as two people.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that's exactly spot on. So the best part is definitely being married to your soulmate and just being around them all the time. Like I tell her all the time, you're my best friend. And she literally is. Like, there's no one I connect with more than her. And, she'd say the same.
I do.
And it's just great. And we have all these great little moments. Everybody has their routines and whatnot. But, whether it's praying together as a family or, watching your, in our case, our son, like learn something new and being like, come here, look this out, and being able to share those moments with your wife, with your husband, or, making a memory somehow, or just spending time together and talking. We love to do that, just sit around and talk to each other. And it's really great. And it really does, in those moments, it's hard to explain, but you really do feel a deep, deep affection for each other.
Yeah. Also, one of the best parts of being married is always having, the support of your spouse. That's actually something I took for granted until recently, when I learned that not all couples have that. Maybe the one party does, but the other one is completely nonchalant about their spouse's feelings and so on. So that is something important, that your spouse is always supporting you.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. So I guess let's go to sort of and also, of course, the obvious things. One of the other great parts about being married is starting a family. You don't want to start a marriage with somebody, or I'm sorry, you don't want to start a family with someone that you do not feel has full buy-in.
Yeah.
So if you are thinking about having kids and you're like, she's my girlfriend and like, we're going to have a kid, or, maybe we'll have kids and blah, blah, blah. And it's just sort of like wishy-washy. You definitely want to be married, because it really does. It gives, again, like, the anxiety goes down a lot, particularly if you found someone who is, more or less trad, like she is, right? Somebody who's, and by which I mean, sort of traditional, like, yeah. So she's not up on the internet lingo, maybe, but someone who takes their faith seriously, who, when they said they, for better or worse, they meant it and whatnot. Having that commitment, that buy-in from them, that you are, no matter what, you're going to do your darndest to, like, build a life together. That's really, really great. So let's go on to the next one. It says, what do you want from your spouse? So I'll go first. I'll talk about sort of what I want, from a wife, and sort of what that entails. And, then she could talk about what she wants from, sort of a husband. So for me as a man, in a marriage, what I want from a wife is respect. And that's important. So like we talked about later, women want affection and attention, men want respect. And one of the things that I think a lot of young guys learn, or will learn with time early on, and Poe brought this up in the comments, is, where is it? We'll answer questions in a minute, but yeah, this one right here. Husbands need to be able to say no, or they can lose their wife's respect over time. That is absolutely true.
Yep.
And I had learned this lesson before we got married, but it was something I needed to learn it was something I learned sort of the hard way in the dating game. So if you're young and you don't have a lot of experience with women, you may think, oh, geez, if I say something and I piss them off, then they'll be really mad and they won't like me and they'll leave me. Oh, no. You need to be able to say no sometimes if it's something important. And if you think you are in the right, you need to be able to say, no, I'm sorry, I disagree. I love you, but it's going to be this way, or or no, or we can't afford that, so I'm not going to buy it, or whatever it is. Being able to say no is key to sort of helping foster that respect. And because what the woman sees in that is, this is someone who actually isn't just a leaf in the wind. This is someone who has his own grounding, who has his own ideas. And, even if I may disagree with them occasionally, he's willing to stand by them, and they will respect you for that.
I can't help but think of those Instagram husbands.
Oh, God.
Oh, my word. Oh, no.
Yeah.
No words.
Babe, take a picture of me, okay?
And you see them laying on the floor, like in these odd positions, taking these crazy photos of their girlfriends or wives. I'm sorry, but I've got no respect for those guys.
Zero. Yeah, so...
Do they even have testosterone? I mean, honestly.
I guess enough to pass. I don't know, as a man. But yeah, so I guess that would be the thing. So what I want from my wife is, I want respect. The other thing I want from her is, affection, which can take, many forms. So I want her to be nice to me, right? I want her to be my friend. And, there's also the, obviously no details or anything, but everybody knows, physical intimacy in a marriage is important.
Yeah.
And you need to sort of, I think as a man, obviously you want that in a relationship, but as a man, I think it's really sort of up to us to sort of really try and bring the romance a little bit. So that whole aspect of when you're dating and, your girlfriend wants you to initiate, unless your wife is ovulating or whatever, and it's like horny week and whatnot, you really do need to up your game. You need to still sort of be able to woo them. You still need to be able to dazzle them. You still can't look like a slob. You should try to dress nicely and smell good and like do things to make the house nice and sort of keep them on your good side, to sort of get that aspect of it. So that's also important. So affection, physical affection, emotional affection, respect. I think that's the other thing. And also what I also expect from a a wife is virtuousness. I want someone who is a good person. And I'm very happy to say that my wife is, one of the best people I know. She really does do a lot for me and for our son, even if she doesn't, necessarily feel like it, because she has internalized that virtue through her upbringing and faith, so that, she knows it's the right thing to do, even if she's not necessarily feeling it at the time. So yeah, I think those are the key things. So I want respect. I want someone who is virtuous, and I want someone who, has affection. So babe, what do you want from a man? What do you want from me, husband?
I would say the number one thing is to be the priest in the home. I mean, that's kind of how I was raised, that the man or the father is the priestly figure. He is the one who is always the don when it comes to all things spiritual. So
yeah, and the Bible says that too.
Yeah, it's in the Bible. Sorry, I am so tired as I'm sitting here. It's like 11:15 at night. I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
So you guys must excuse me if I'm not as peppy as I was last time.
No, it's all good. Yeah, she was, speaking of virtuousness and and things like that. She was actually really busy today. So yeah, she had work, and then she cleaned and whatnot, and she took care of the baby and all that sort of stuff. And I cleaned up afterwards, but she's been quite busy today. So yeah, that's what you want, fellas. That's what you want. But I think you make a very good point, that having a guy who's takes their faith seriously and wants their family to take faith seriously. So yeah, having someone, a husband who will, take the step to be like, yeah, we are going to, pray before meals. We are going to pray, before we go to bed. We are going to sort of, thank the Lord in good times and bad. We are going to, say a prayer before we hit the road, and, take spiritual life seriously. I think that that is important, particularly if you're marrying someone who has a faith background. And you should be marrying someone who has a faith background anyways.
Yes, you should.
Which leads to our last point.
Oh, babe, before we...
Go ahead.
I still wanted to carry on with that. If you have someone and your spouse is spiritual, all those other things tend to follow, like,
that's a good
love
point.
and faithfulness and trust and all those things. What else? Oh, and it's just good sometimes to have someone that you're accountable to, and vice versa. So, for instance, I may not always be in the right spiritual standing. So it's really nice if I have my husband there who is, kind of the pillar of strength, who is kind of my inspiration. And that's a good thing to have it with your spouse, because you can have days where you don't feel like being a good Christian, or you just, so it's really nice when you have your spouse to be there as your kind of your anchor.
Yeah.
And for the children also, because that's why you have two parents.
Mm-hmm.
So, everything is not just on the one parent, because I've seen that so many times where you've got the mother usually who is the God-fearing one, and the father's like a drunk layabout, and it's up to the mother, to kind of instill all these godly things into their children, when that's not actually only her job. It's supposed to be both parents' job. So yeah, I appreciate the fact that my husband is a spiritual, man, and he is the leader of our home. And I think that he's very underrated. I think it's something that a lot of people think it's old school, but I mean, I don't know. What do you think, babe?
I think that's, I think you're right. I think a lot of people, they have the impression that having sort of the husband as sort of the leader of the house means, I'm the slave master and you're all my slaves.
Yeah.
That's the wrong way to think about it. Think about it more like I'm the, whatever, like CEO and she's like, the vice president or something, the import from your vice president matters a lot.
Yeah.
They sort of have their finger on the pulse of things that are going on that you don't have. And you respect them and you honor them, and they respect you too. But there's kind of so the way I put it like this, so like in our sort of day-to-day lives, there's a lot of sort of democracy. You could call it that. We've sort of found our own roles, and we'll sort of come to consensus on on a lot of things, mostly from day to day. But I feel like most of the really big decisions, the way those sort of work with us is, we'll talk about them a lot, like where are we going to live, for instance, or, whatever it is, but just as an example. And, but usually the big decision and ultimately ends up coming down to me. Right. So we'll sort of like, again, like I said, we'll consult with each other. You never want to make a big decision without talking to the other person about it.
Yeah.
And that goes for both men and women. But usually if a decision does have to be made, I'm the guy who does it. And, I think that's fine. And,
you know what, to me, that is biblical.
Yeah.
That is the way I was raised. And I don't care if anyone thinks that I'm weak for saying that, but to me, that is biblical. So, and I may not always like it, but yeah, it's just, the way things are supposed to be in my mind. Obviously, there are times where I do disagree with him, and if that is the case, we will discuss it. But he doesn't steamroll me or anything like that.
Right.
So it's.
But I'm also willing to sort of stand firm when I feel like I have to, or feel like I should, if it's like a moral issue. And that's what sort of one other thing, I guess, that's sort of important is also sort of respecting each other's space.
Yeah.
And I think that's something both men and women want, right? So, you make time for what's important to each other, but you also need to let them make time for what's important to them. Whether it's sort of they just need time to relax, or like in my case, I started this channel, and particularly relatively recently, I've been putting a lot of work into it, and she's been very supportive of that. She'll be like, yeah, I understand, just sort of make sure that I sort of arrange it in such a way that, I could still fulfill my other obligations. Right. So I can't just sort of shrug off all the, all the other things I have to do. But when, when I do sort of set aside time to do this, she really does sort of respect that. And I think that's good. And you also need to be able to respect that, for your wife as well. So, particularly having sort of a young one in the house, it's a lot of work and energy. And, sometimes she just wants to sort of sit down alone and watch them like, dumb like reality TV or something, just to sort of like relax and unplug. And that's perfectly fine, and, as husbands, we need to be cognizant of that, your wife does want alone time too. Maybe not as much as you do, but she still does need some of that. So now I guess sort of on to the last part before we sort of answer questions is, when shouldn't two people marry? So what are the things that you should look out for that you should not? So if you see these things, you'll be like, nah, I'm not. Pull out, bro.
I would say people getting married just to get away from the situation. That's not a good thing. It's definitely not a good thing.
No.
Settling, just getting married for the sake of getting married because they're tired of being lonely. That is not the reason to get married.
Yeah.
In that case, I would say my best advice is just pray about it, wait on the Lord, but don't get married to someone just for the sake of getting married to someone.
Yeah.
That is not the way you should do things. What do you think?
I think that's very good points. The one or two other things I'll add to that is don't marry someone who's of a different religion.
Yeah, there's a big one.
Or, doesn't have a religion. Well, of course, this channel being what it is, of course, I would say atheists have a religion as well. But yeah, definitely don't marry someone who doesn't have the same faith. Now, you can sort of deal maybe with like denominational differences. So like, a Lutheran and a Presbyterian, getting together or something like that. You can work with that. That's fine. But if someone's fundamentally opposed to sort of what you believe or doesn't share it, maybe they're not opposed to it, but they just don't share it, that's a big problem. And you might be able to make it work for yourselves, just the two of you married. But when you have kids, that's going to become a huge source of tension, because at that point, if you take your faith seriously, you're going to be like, okay, so now I'm going to be rolling the dice on my kids' salvation potentially. And even though, Abu Bakr is a nice guy.
Of all the names.
Of all the names. Even though Abu Bakr is, a great guy, and he's he's got such a great fashion sense, and he makes me feel so great on the inside. He's going to want his kids to be raised Muslim. I'm a Christian. You can't be in a situation like that. So
you shouldn't be in a situation.
You shouldn't. Like, and you should really be able to sort of tell that right away. Also, I would say, if you're sort of more traditionally minded, Christian, whatever, don't try to go for someone who is totally like crazy. So like, even if they are, let's say, nominally a Christian, if they're like a radical feminist or something, that's going to be a problem. Or if they're self-absorbed, right? If they're an e-girl, if they're,
oh gosh,
if they have like a zillion Instagram followers or whatnot. And this sort of goes to what we talked about in the last video, but don't marry someone who like puts up a lot of red flags.
Yeah. Most likely she'll end up cheating on you. Most likely.
Yeah.
Clubbing girls that are like, week in and week out in the clubs, that is not really a good what you look for in a wife. So
no.
Also, just marrying someone and knowing deep down this person is not the right person for you, but hoping that marrying them will kind of change them.
That's a great point.
That it never works out that way.
Mm-mm. No, never. I think that's a very good point you bring up. So, and usually this will happen in dating.
Yeah.
Right. You'll date someone and you're like, oh, he's a good guy, or she's a good girl, but she has this problem, and I can make them better. And no, you're not going to make them better. Like, they may become better, but it's not going to be because you're fixing them. You know what I mean? Like, so maybe 5 years down the line, yeah, maybe they have changed, but don't wait around for that to happen, basically.
Yeah. One thing that I forgot to mention in our last stream was, what is a major red flag with any relationship is when you're trying to change yourself for that person. Because I know I've done it, and it doesn't work out.
We all have, yeah.
You just end up feeling bad about yourself, like what the hell was I thinking? This person didn't even probably notice the changes that I did for him or her. So yeah, just a word of advice: don't change yourself for somebody else. When you meet the right person, you won't need to do any of those things.
No.
It's so easy when you meet the right person.
It really is. And that was the thing, like when we got married, and going back to sort of why it's so great to be married, it's really great when you've married the right person.
Yeah.
And that sort of, if you want to figure out how to do that, listen to our last stream. I'm not going to dwell on it too much here, but when you really met the right person, you have all these sort of adjustments and, minor difficulties that every couple sort of goes through. But, a lot of stuff really just clicks into place if you try to do the right thing.
Yeah.
If you have that, particularly if you have that spiritual grounding, if you guys are sort of on the same page there, and you have good relationships with your parents, you had a nice upbringing, or even if you didn't, you learned from that mistakes and you were able to grow past that. It really does. A lot of this stuff really does just sort of click into place once you marry each other. So I guess with that, we'll sort of go to your questions now. I haven't if you've been wondering like why I'm not, hey, why didn't you answer my question or anything? I just to sort of help me stay focused and whatnot. I turned the private chat off just so I can't see it. So we'll go over there right now. Go to the comments. Oh, babe, look, we got a very first super chat right here from Hunger.
Oh, thank you,
Nice.
Hunger.
For 10 smackers. Thank you very much. So Hunger says, let me throw this up here on the screen. Hi, I'm in the about to pop the question stage. Any advice for dating a woman who's set on a career before having kids? We both want kids, but she wants to get her career going first. Thoughts?
That is a difficult one, eh?
So, yeah. Yeah. So I would be wary. Now, obviously, you know, I don't have the ins and outs of your particular situation, but just sort of, I can tell you sort of based off sort of my general experience, you know, how I sort of handle this. First off, it's good that you've discussed that you want to have kids first. For whatever reason, a lot of people don't even ask that question when they get married. And, you know, it causes a lot of tension and, you know, it breaks up marriages. You know, if somebody really wants to have kids and there was the assumption that they would have kids, but, you know, it doesn't happen. So good on you for clearing that up first. Wants to get her career going first. So I guess I would be wary of someone who's like maybe a corporate ladder climber, you know, somebody who's like really like I think it's important to sort of have a timetable.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to answer that question. Sort of with the limited information I have, you know, I don't want to give you the wrong advice, but I think it's very good for any situation to sort of have a clear timetable on sort of when you want these things to happen, right? So you've both say you're in a question we're about ready to propose to this person, great. You know, they want to have kids, also great. They want to get their career going first, okay. I think that sort of depends on a couple of factors. So if you're in a situation where you both need to be working and it would be advantageous for, you know, like let's say you live in a very expensive area, okay, you know, that might make sense. Also, if it's the sort of career where they can sort of slip out in the future to sort of, you know, raise kids at an early age, if you're in a financial position to do that, now that's also good. But these are things I think you should definitely talk with your possibly soon to be future fiance, just to make sure you sort of have the same vision of life. And that's what I would say. Talk to them, make sure you have the same vision of what your life together wants to look like.
Yeah, just to add to that, I know this is such a cliche story, and I'm sure you've heard this many times, but I personally know of someone who did want to first do the career thing, and then they wanted to have kids afterwards, and she's like 36, 37 now, and she can't have kids, and they've been struggling for years to have kids.
Yeah.
So you might want to have that conversation first. I don't know how old you guys are, so this might be something you need to discuss with her. And, you know, like you said, set a timeline.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, she wants to see to her career first. You also have things that you want to do. So this is not a one-way street where, you know, she gets to make all the rules. You also do have your say in this. So discuss it with her.
Yeah. So I guess I think those are all general good things that sort of apply to your situation. Make sure you have the same vision of the future, you know, have a timeline, and just what Lauren said. So I hope that helps, and all the best of luck. Hopefully you guys make this work out and have a big based trad family too. That'd be great. Now let's go on to from Sultanis HN. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
So kind of curious if you have a Telegram or not. Would be interested to have you come on for a podcast to talk about Italian fascism in relation to historical context, economics, and philosophy. Yeah, I do not have a channel Telegram. the best way to get in touch with me is on Twitter. I also have an email linked on my about page on the YouTube channel. So yeah, feel free to send me an email on there if you want. I check my email pretty regularly on the great, I think it's called the Chain of Being or something is the email address. So yeah, definitely shoot me an email there or hit me up on Twitter. Also, for whatever reason, some of your comments on some of my videos, and they weren't too spicy either. It's just, I noticed that YouTube removed them. So I was trying to answer a couple of your questions that you had, but YouTube just removed them for some unknown reason. So I apologize with any of that. Let's go on down. Any more super chats? From America with an exclamation point. Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Patriarch. Thank you very much, America.
Thank you, America.
Yeah, I feel you're making me miss America already. All right. I want to go back to the old country. So, all right, cool. And that's it for the super chats. Wow, thank you so much, guys. Now let's go and sort of look for the other questions. Which one, babe, did you say? This one. Okay. From Dave Bergerin. Most women and men to pull the pin on the fat grenade as soon as they get married.
That is a danger of happening, yes.
The dad bod, as they say.
That can happen.
Yeah. But I think that was just a funny comment. Wanted to highlight. But yeah, that sort of goes back to what I said earlier. The aspect of sort of, and you know, both of us were, I guess, for good genes / active lifestyle, whatever, you know, we're neither of us had the fat grenade go off, but you know, there's been a couple of times, you know, where, you know, my paunch starts building up a little bit, and you know, I need to realize, hey, and I realized, you know, my belt's getting a little tight. I'm not going to get too fat for my clothes. I refuse. And you know, you just sort of go to the gym, you eat better, and that sort of goes into what I said about sort of, you know, maintaining the that X factor, sort of being attracted to each other, you know, and I think that goes for women too. You know, I told my wife straight up, like, you know, I think it was in a funny context. Like, I wasn't trying to be mean or anything, but we're watching like 1,000-Pound Sisters or something, and I was like, Lauren, if you ever got like fat like that, I'd leave until you got your got your shit together, essentially. Like, or I'll come to deliver a salad and then I'm leaving again until you sort of lose the weight. So yeah, I think that's something that you really should do. Try to look nice for each other, and don't become a lard ass.
Agreed.
Yeah. So we'll go back up. What's your opinion on antinatalism argument? So my answer to that is antinatalism is fake and gay. It's not, definitely. I don't have much respect for that argument. The antinatalism, you know, Lauren, it is, in case you haven't heard, it's like this idea that people shouldn't have kids because like suffering is too much. And yeah, you guys can't tell off the camera, but she's just smirking at how dumb that is. So there is a lot of human suffering in the world, but I think it would take a lot of time for me to sort of answer that here, sort of in a fleshed out way. If you want to sort of understand sort of kind of what my response to that would be a little bit, you can check out my video on the glories of fatherhood and why you should have children. So go check that out. Maybe I'll make a video on antinatalism. That's not a bad idea, actually. So good idea, actually, Johann Badenhorst. We're just going down through the comments here just to answer the non-super chats. Which one, Sugar? From Poe the Person. It's not a question, but a good comment. You have to forgive each other and try not to punish each other. Yes. That's a big one. And I think, you know, this might be me stepping out of my lane a little bit. But I think with women, they handle it maybe a little bit worse than men sometimes. Like with the punishment aspect, like with a dude, at least I think, what's a good, how do I describe it? So it's sort of what you actually mentioned this a little bit earlier, where a guy will have a fight or something. He'll be like, hey, you're an asshole, blah, blah, blah. They punch each other in the face and like, oh, hey man, I'm sorry about that. Yeah. Okay. And they sort of get over it. With women, I think they tend to take things a little more personally. And I think, that's just kind of how they're designed. And I think the risk is that, you hold on to that maybe a little to an extent where where you're trying to get back at them a little bit sometimes.
Kind of.
It can't happen. And, I'm not trying to like point fingers or anything. I'm just saying that's something you have to work on. And for dudes, I think it's less that, and it's more just sort of blowing up at something. So you don't really necessarily hold on to something, but maybe you got a short temper or something. Because like in our situation, sometimes I'll just get like set off by something. I won't hold on to a grudge, but it's something that really isn't a big deal and I shouldn't get mad about. So
yeah, ideally it would be better to forgive each other, but sometimes we choose not to take the high road. So
yeah, and we both should. So
yeah,
men, temperance of attitude, and now women, less grudges, I guess. So communication, men always want to fix a problem, can cause tension from skeptical waves. Yes. So always trying to, that's the thing. We're fix it. We're Mr. Fix It. So sometimes you just need to let them sort of handle their business and chill out and whatnot. That's true. Also, if your wife is just complaining, to have someone listen. Yeah.
I've had that. Where I just wanted to complain, and I just wanted him to listen, and that's all I wanted. I didn't want any feedback. I just wanted him to listen.
Yeah, and it might not, and most of the time it's not even about me or anything.
It's like about work or something.
It's just it's about work or something, and then she'll have like some stupid ass question come up or something, and she just wants to vent about it. Yeah, and it's your job to sort of just sit there and let her vent it out, and she'll feel better, and you'll be doing a good service. Yeah. All right, skimming down. Any other questions? I'm looking for question marks.
Okay.
Was I blocked? I don't think I blocked you. If that question is directed at me, I don't think I blocked anyone. Yeah. So Isaac Brock, I do not believe I blocked you, sir. Continue. Which one? Okay. From Firefox is red, Explorer is blue, Google Plus sucks, and Chrome does too. Can you give an example of marrying for the sake of getting away from something? From what?
Well, sometimes you have a bad family environment. You just want to get away from that, so you marry the first guy that comes along or that asks you to marry him. That's an example of, getting married for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I think that's a good common point. Yeah, someone's in a shitty situation and then they see marrying someone else as an opportunity to get away from that, whatever that is. So like, abusive environment. And so, basically white knighting, right? So you don't want to be a white knight, and you don't want to be the person looking for a white knight to come save you, because whatever problems you have, you're still going to have them when you get married. So, and it takes a while to sort of get over that. So we'll continue down looking for more questions. All right. Very good. So let's continue on. Thanks again for the super chats, guys, and all the questions. We're going to go on now to sort of talking about parenting. So this is the second half of the show. So, Sugar, what do you love about being a mom?
What do I love about being a mom? I love my baby. He's just so amazing in his adorable and annoying little ways.
Yeah.
What do I love about being a mom? Just the morning when he wakes up and he's got this big smile on his face. He's always so happy to see us in the morning.
The mornings are the best.
It really makes your day.
Yeah.
Just having this little person being so dependent on you. they love you so unconditionally.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the best. There's no words really to describe. But yeah, I love being a mother. I actually love it more than being a wife.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think that's perfectly fair. And that's the thing. Like when we got married, it felt great, and it still feels great. But when you have a kid, the love you feel for your child, I think, is more than you feel for anyone else.
Yeah. And you
And
can't imagine anything happening to them.
yeah, like like Lauren and I, or we've both talked about this before. But yeah, we just love, and we're sort of united, and that's the other thing too. Aside from having someone that you love more than literally anything else in the world, your child, having someone where you share that with, right, where you are united in your love and service to this little human, I think that's also another great thing.
Yeah, it is.
It really does sort of bring the family together, and you really do. It's moments like that when you realize you're like, so this is what the institution of marriage is all about. Really, it's not just so I can have tie this person down and have them live with me and we can bang all the time. That's not what it's about. And you really realize that once you have a child, right? So as good as married life is, I think it is fulfilled in childbearing, right?
Agreed.
Because you and your wife now have this union which manifested itself through the creation of life. And the fact that no matter what happens, you guys are going to have that bond of a child to sort of. It's really hard to explain. Like, I know that sounds so cliche. Like you won't know it until it happens to you, but it really is kind of true. It sort of elevates the spiritual environment of the house a little bit too, I think.
Yeah.
Because then at least me as a husband, now that I have this child here, it's driven me a lot in a number of ways. It's driven me to want to get right with the Lord. It's driven me to, want to take better care of my health. It's driven me to, put more time and effort in this YouTube channel even, and yeah, I can't explain it. It's a transcendent existential thing. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's what I love about being a parent. Just having something that you love so much and being able to watch it grow and take care of them and, guide them, and having and being able to share someone with that to uniquely share that experience with my wife is just the greatest blessing in the world. So yeah, that would be my answer to that. Now, how does your life change after kids? So first off, now that we've talked about all the great stuff, let's talk about the challenges. So what are some things, or what could be thought of as negative aspects? So what are some challenges to being a parent?
Well,
keeping the house clean.
The house is always dirty when you have a toddler running around. Like, you can clean it. Like, this is our routine, eh? At night, after Mr. has played and done his little thing, the place will look a mess and we'll clean it up. The next morning, it's still clean until he wakes up. If you look at 10 o'clock again, place is dirty. And it stays that way like until late evening, because he just, whenever you clean up, he just messes. But that's fine. I mean, this is kind of what we expected, and something that I've learned long ago is your house is not a museum. So people don't expect your house to look perfect. Because, I mean, yeah, your house is not a museum. So if it's a bit messy, it's fine. But you shouldn't, stress yourself too much out about that. How does life change after kids? You need more patience, eh?
Yeah.
Seriously. I think as a mom, especially because the kids tend to be more clingy to the mother than to the father. So one thing that gets a bit under my skin is how our baby will just climb all over me all the time, eh? And
Yeah.
and I love our baby, but yes, there's times where I feel so overwhelmed. I'm so tired. I just want to sit by myself, and he will come and he'll climb all over me. And he's so relentless. He will not stop climbing all over me. Or if I'm standing somewhere, like if I'm busy cooking, he'll come and he'll grab on my clothes and just yank and yank until I give him my attention.
Mm,
Um, there's a part of me that used to feel bad for saying that, but
not anymore.
speaking to other mothers, I just realized, you know what? All mothers feel like this.
Mm.
We are not perfect people. We do get irritated with our children. That's just what happens. That's matter how small they are. So if you feel like that, good for you.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it.
No. And yeah, that's the thing. Getting annoyed with your kid and not loving them are two different things.
Very different.
So yeah, no, and that's the thing. And that's going back to what I said earlier. That's the opportunity when that's sort of going on. That's the opportunity for the man to sort of step in and be like, hey, do you want me to give you a break?
Yeah.
And they really appreciate that. They really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's one thing about that is difficult for single parents is you don't have that support, and you need that support.
Yeah.
You really do.
Yeah, being a single parent sucks. Don't do it. Yeah, so as far as changes, challenging changes to sort of having kids. Yeah, all what she said. But I think something that this isn't, I more or less expected this, but some guys might not. But once your wife has a child, get used to being the second most important person in her life.
Yeah.
You will be playing second fiddle for until they're out of the house. You just will. And for some people that might come as a rude awakening, but I think if you have sort of foresight and wisdom of any amount of wisdom, you should be able to recognize that. But yeah, having all the time to do the things that you like to do together, you're gonna have a lot less of that. If you want to be intimate, sometimes it might be a little difficult to sort of work around the sleep cycle. I'm just being real here. These are real things that I think don't get talked about a lot, but it's just sort of one of those changes. It comes with the territory.
Yeah.
And it's perfectly normal. Now, as far as positive changes, what do you got to say to that? So we talked about all those good things about being a parent, like on that sort of an emotive level. But what are the fun changes? I would say the fun. I'll go first. The theme for me that I really liked is, wow, like my life now has so much more meaning than it ever did. Like, like the silly job that I do, all the even the bills and just chores and whatnot, and wiping his bum or whatever it is, it all serves a greater purpose now. And you realize that when you have a kid, right? So let's say your work situation, you're working and you're not doing your dream job or whatever. But now that you have a kid, it doesn't get to you so much anymore, because now you realize, hey, this isn't just sort of for me, it's for my son or my daughter or whatever. So that sort of, it helps change your attitude a lot in a big way. And that sort of, and I got over this years ago before I got married, but that kind of, sort of nihilistic, where you feel like your life's going nowhere and whatnot. That's never been less than since I had a son. And it's because, again, like you're really living out your purpose to a large extent in here on earth, I guess is the best way I could put it. So, of course, there are those people who are called to celibacy and, they don't have families, by choice for like spiritual reasons or whatever, that's fine. I respect that. But me not being called to that, I'm really doing what I should be doing, in large part by having a family. And you really feel it. I certainly do. So,
Yeah, like you were saying, every little thing that you do when you become a parent, that's got so much meaning behind it. Um, Even if it's just wiping their face or cleaning the boogers out of their nose, every little thing has got meaning to it. It doesn't feel like it's just something that you're doing. It serves a greater purpose, as you said. Um, and it's just so rewarding, you
mm,
know, just him looking at you,
yeah.
holding your face and smiling. It's There's no words to describe it. So as challenging as it can be to be a parent, it is the most rewarding job you'll ever have. I think that way. Um, I know there's some people who may not feel that way, but yeah, it's the most rewarding job.
Yeah. And from James Marone, I would argue that family and doing a job give men reason and purpose, providing for people. That is exactly it.
Yeah.
And to quote Gustavo Fring from Breaking Bad, what does a man do, Walt? A man provides, right? So, and that's exactly it. So having people that rely on you, like my wife relies on me immensely now, and my son relies immensely on me, and I'm shouldering that. I feel like freaking Atlas. It's you're busy and you're doing a lot, and you don't have nearly as much leisure time that you used to. But paradoxically, you've never been happier because you're doing what you should be doing. A man provides, a man builds, a man takes care of his family. And the mere fact that you're doing that, as kind of uncomplicated as it is really, really rewarding. So yeah, good point there, James. So advice on raising toddlers and babies.
Raise them in the way of the Lord. That's what I believe.
Yeah. No, I mean, no doubt about that. And
no cell phones until they're like 15 or 16.
Yeah.
That's kind of my golden rule at the moment.
Yeah. So I would say raise them in the way of the Lord. Of course, pray, try to lead them, because, people, I mean, you'll get this from, cringy atheist types. They're like, oh, I want my kid to sort of make their own decisions and whatnot, which just means I want them to be propagandized by public school and a godless secular culture instead of me, right? Your kids are going to get a message somewhere. It might as well be from, the Word of God.
Exactly.
Right? If I have a choice of, having my kid be influenced by, a blue-haired sociologist professor who hates men, or the literal word of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, it's going to be the second one, right? So raise them in the way of the Lord, and once you sort of do that, and you sort of understand kind of what that implies, it also sort of affects your parenting style a little bit. So what else were you saying about technology, babe?
Oh yeah, no cell phones until he's like 15 or 16.
Yeah,
if we can help it.
No, I think that's no joke. I don't want to do too much gossip, but like we have a neighbor whose daughter, it was like really sweet when we came here, and it was at that sort of like pre-pubescent stage, and then they sort of hit puberty since we moved here, and all of a sudden now it's all about TikTok and cell phones and just trashy pop culture, and she's on that phone all the time. And there's been a huge change in sort of how she's been, not only because of that. There's like other reasons with their family dynamic and whatnot, but the poisonous influence of social media on young people especially is evident.
Yeah,
and
it really is.
Yeah, that would also be my advice. Do not give your kid a smartphone, period, until they're sort of age, right? So until, or sort of monitor it a little bit. So like with our son, he may get a phone, but it's going to be like a dumb phone, right? So it'll be so he could call me if he needs something, and that's it. So yeah, I think having an over-reliance on technology, using the iPad as your babysitter or something like that, you don't want to do that. You just don't, because then they won't learn all this great stuff about being a kid, about running outside and making friends and sort of negotiating with other kids and getting into fights and conflict resolution and socializing and all these sorts of things. And then, before you know it, you'll be that parent at the restaurant with your little turd kid on the other side of the table, just like looking at their phone and not talking to you and like barely present. I hate it whenever I see that. So yeah. So do not give them too much technology. Technology is a tool. Use it as one, not as a lifestyle. Now, as far as advice, that's sort of advice on kids more generally, but with toddlers and babies specifically, which is what we're dealing with, I would say have a clear, once they sort of get about to the age of 1, you could start sort of hitting them with a routine. And even before that, with the sleep training, one of the things that we struggled with a little bit was getting them to sleep in a way that didn't not let us sleep. So what we ended up doing, we had their room, but they didn't really sleep in it. They slept in bed with us. But when we decided, all right, look, something's got to change, we just put him in his bedroom, and he cried his little head off. He cried, he screamed and he puked on himself. And he did that for like 45 minutes.
Straight.
Yeah. Nonstop. Wow. But the next day, no problems. And we've had no problems since. And that was months ago. So I would say sleep training them. Yeah. Let them cry themselves to sleep.
It's difficult.
It's difficult. Like particularly, like I had to hold Lauren back, She wants to run in there and save, oh, my poor baby. I'm like, no, we must. It's for his own good, sort of thing. So, yeah, sleep train your kid. You're not a bad parent if you let them cry themselves to sleep. It's just because then once they do that, they realize, hey, I was fine. I didn't get eaten by wolves in the night like I thought I was. So that's okay. Also, be consistent with your kid.
Yeah.
So, again, sort of at this age, he's at the point now where he's figuring things out. He needs to be able to explore. Let him explore. Let him tinker with things. Obviously, don't let him do anything dangerous. But sort of, he can sort of figure out what no means, and yanking things away from him and whatnot. That's warranted sometimes. Like if he's going to break something. Sometimes you do have to raise your voice at him, but yeah, it's just what it is.
For those of you wondering, he's 1 year and 3 months old.
Yeah, exactly. 1 year and 3 months. So let's continue on. Doing pretty good time. So what's the end goal of a successful parenting, in your opinion? So what does winning as a parent look like, Sugar?
Oh, that's easy. Your child is a decent human being.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of what all of us strive for as parents? Those of us who are not drug addicts. That's kind of what we strive for.
Yeah. No, you want to raise a based and red-pilled adult. That's what you want. I say that as a joke, but it's kind of true, right? So you want someone who's I would say, first and foremost, still a Christian. You want to raise someone up to be a Christian, equip them with knowledge, equip them with apologetics, equip them with a good education, which can mean private schooling or homeschooling, or maybe you're just like freaking lucky and you live in the one neighborhood where there's actually a decent public school who won't, teach them that they should hate having wee-wees and become girls or something. But you should really supplement that with your own influence, right? And it should be things that are sort of rooted in tradition that are true. So I would say that. But yeah, raise your kid to become, based in red pilled, essentially. So last question. Sugar. Why should people have kids? So let's say I'm a TikToker. All right. And I'm like, let's say I'm a TikToker and I'm like, oh, but I have all these people who love me and I'm so popular and I got fat injections in my bum and, I'm making so much money. I have a house at 22 years old. You don't. You're almost 30. Oh my God. Why would I want to do what you're doing? What would you say to that person? Aside from slapping them.
Aside from slapping them.
Yeah.
I tell him, honey, you need Jesus. Seriously though, why should people have kids? Well, quality people make quality children. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
And the world needs quality people. I'm not saying that, as kind of a brag, but if
it's true.
Yeah, I'm trying to sound as humble as possible. I seriously, I'm not trying to say that in a shitty way.
No.
But yeah, quality people should make quality kids, and that's what you want in the world.
I think that's exactly right. Why should people have kids? To outbreed the degenerates. So, you see so many young, smart people who are sort of on a trajectory to go places in life, and they either don't have kids or maybe, they're running out the clock and they're able to squeeze one out at 35. There's so many people like that. Don't be that person, right? As she says, quality people need to have kids to make a more quality world. Simple as that. So if you are someone who gets it, right? And if you are someone who, has sort of healthy ideas for a healthy society, and you're able to meet someone who is on board with that, you should totally have a family. Like it's important that you have a family. It's important for all of us that you have a family, because we need more people in the world who are decent, who are God-fearing, and who will make a better. People like that don't make just a good life for themselves. They make a good life for other people.
Yeah.
I think that's the most important. That's the best way I can put it. If you're a good person, and that doesn't mean you're a saint, but it means you're trying to be like a good, God-fearing, reasonable person. The best thing that you can do to help everybody out is get married and have a family, because you're going to make more reasonable, decent, God-fearing people, and they are going to leave an impact on the world. That's your legacy. That's your real legacy, right? So when you're dead and gone, you're going to have like 50 descendants who hopefully most of them are all like decent, and they're making the world better. They're being of use to people. They're creating businesses. They're educating. They're physicians. They're aiding in some sort of way. So yeah, I would say that. I guess that's all I have to say on the matter. So let's sort of go here. We're going to answer questions now. Oh, wow. Yet another super chat. Gee whiz. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Crispy.
Yeah, from Chris B. Just got off work and saw you guys streaming. Funny, I was just listening to your first date stream last night. Found you through AA, by the way. Keep up the good work. Wow. Thank you very much, Chris B. Glad you enjoyed it. Let us continue. So now we'll sort of go through and look at the normal comments. Or I'm sorry, normal questions. Sorry, my throat's a little dry, guys. Okay, here we go. From Firefox is red. Did the way you spend time on hobbies change after childbirth? And if so, how do you feel about that? You may have come a little bit later into the stream, Firefox. We talked about this a little bit a little bit with the married portion, but what you are saying, what happens after you have a kid is that your hobby time does go down a lot. So, for example, I used to not game a ton, but I gamed a decent amount, and now I don't hardly at all. Now,
if you do, the baby sits on your lap.
Yeah, or if I do, the baby sits on my lap. So, like sometimes for fun, I'll whip out the Super Nintendo and play like Mario Kart or Super Mario World or Zelda or something. And it's kind of low impact, and I can just sort of lazily play it or whatever. And he'll be crawling around and having fun, and I'll give him a controller and he'll eat buttons and try to eat the controller and stuff, So I'll do things like that. Or, on the weekend, or if I have a little bit of time, maybe I'll squeeze in a little bit of StarCraft or something, but that's about it. So yeah, I don't have as much time for hobbies, and I don't play as much music as I used to. I like to play guitar and bass and stuff, and write a little bit of music. I don't do nearly as much as that. So, that is a sacrifice with child rearing. But like I was saying earlier,
but you don't mind it.
You really don't. You don't miss it that much. And I know that, maybe someone's saying or thinks that's a cope or anything, but it really isn't, because for all the other reasons we talked about, right? Because all the, like I said, I'm busier now more than ever, but I've never been happier because of the meaning that I have in my life with my son. So, but yeah, and I guess it's sort of different for different people. So if you don't have sort of a something like I'm doing with this YouTube channel, I could game a lot more, but I'm trying to grow this thing, and so this takes up a lot of my time too. I might game a little bit more if I had like a normal job and wasn't trying to do something like this. But yeah, so your mileage may vary, but no matter which way you slice it, after you have kids, your hobbies are going to go down. They're going to take a hit. Okay, so from James Marone, any advice for a man who wants to be a father but grew up fatherless? I didn't have a dad, so one of my fears is not knowing how to be a father or a husband. I get existential about this all the time. Sugar, I'm going to let you answer this one and go get a water. Go ahead. I'll be right back.
Hi, James. The fact that you want to do better than your father that wasn't there is a good thing. And I know it can be easy to kind of dwell on these things, but I think when the time comes when you do have your family, that you'll actually be a really good father, because you know what it's like not to have a father. So you'll try your best not to, repeat that sort of thing. So yeah, cut yourself some slack. I think you'll do really good as a dad.
Yeah. And another thing to keep in mind, who didn't have particularly good fathers? Both of our parents.
Yeah.
Like all of them. Like my, her mom's dad was like kind of a maniac.
Yeah, he was a abusive drunk.
Yeah. And my mom grew up more or less afraid of my grandpa, and they were able to sort of reconcile with earlier, but she didn't grow up with the best father. Her father was like, he wasn't abusive or anything, but he was just totally uninterested in, her dad as a son. He was just sort of like,
so my grandpa.
Yeah, he was like the landlord dad. Right? He's like, here's your place to live, here's your food to eat, but I'm not really going to take particular interest in you. Sorry, son.
Yeah, and my father, he's made sure he didn't, raise us the same way. So
yeah. No, my dad had a very contentious. My dad's father actually died when he was a toddler. So he was raised by a stepdad, and he had a very contentious relationship with him throughout their whole life until later. So I think it obviously helps if you have a good father as a role model, but just because you don't doesn't mean you can't be a good dad yourself.
Exactly.
And both of our parents, all of our parents are great. And I'm not just saying that, like my dad, there are a few people I respect as much as my dad and her dad. And they're both different and they both have their strengths. Like my dad's maybe a little more, easygoing, sort of being American and whatnot. But, I think that's, maybe a bit of a good thing, a little less, sort of set in his ways in a certain sense. But, also her dad takes spiritual matters very seriously. And that's the thing that I really respect about him. So yeah, just because you had a bad childhood or didn't have a good father figure doesn't mean you can't learn what it is to be a good dad. And don't let that dissuade you, man. Don't get too much in your own head. If you know what the problems are and you want to avoid them, and you're able to find someone who's healthy, I mean, I think you have a lot of potential. Just being aware of this sort of thing, I think, shows that you have potential. Yeah. So yeah, that's my answer to that. Let's continue. Here we go. From Base Clausewitz, 1571. My parents didn't give me no telefono till I was 15. Yeah, I didn't get a telephone until I was 18, until I had graduated high school. And I'm 29. So this wasn't like in the Stone Age or anything, but yeah. Oh, we got another super chat. Gee whiz. From Thomas Cubbett for £5, 5 British Royal Pounds.
Thank you, Thomas.
Great stream. Appreciate your message around family values. Would you consider making it a video on the impact of the abuse of alcohol on family life?
That's actually a good idea.
Yeah, that is a good idea. Because, like we said, particularly here in South Africa, alcoholism is a big problem.
It really is.
It's a huge problem across racial lines. So I would say it's probably the worst in parts of the Black community and also in the colored community as well.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly, yeah, it's really bad in the colored community. And among sort of like working class Afrikaners, it's also a big problem.
Yeah.
Like a lot of our neighbors are predominantly white and Afrikaans, but we also have some colored neighbors as well. And there's also a Black family who lives around here. And like some of these blue collar Afrikaner types.
They are pickled every weekend.
It's pathetic, and
they have kids.
And they have jobs. So it's like, they're not destitute or anything, but it's to such a point where like, the kids will come over, not to us, but to the neighbors downstairs, and they'll knock on the neighbors downstairs door and ask for breakfast because they literally drank away the paycheck. It's freaking pathetic. So yeah, I think sort of a stream or a video on alcohol abuse, I think would be good. That's not a bad idea. Thanks for that. Sort of going on through. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to post them and we'll be tying off here in just a minute. Sort of have any final thoughts, Sugar, while I'm looking through here for questions?
One thing I forgot to mention earlier, I also should have mentioned it on our other stream, was it's actually really important for your parents to meet the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with, because they see things that you don't see.
Right. Which is why arranged marriages weren't such a terrible idea.
Yeah, it actually wasn't. You know what? I would never say this to my father, but he saved me from a lot of bad relationships. So, yeah, it doesn't hurt to listen to what your parents have to say. Like I said, they see things that you don't necessarily see. You're so, blinded by infatuation that you don't really see those things. So, yeah, just some friendly advice. Yeah,
no, definitely. Oh, geez. From CR for £23.99. Thanks, man.
Thank you, CR.
This is very generous. I will watch later, but wanted to contribute. Love from North Wales. Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Let's see. Going through here. But yeah, I think that's an important thing. So if you got good parents and you should have them meet whoever your prospective husband or wife is. And if you're, if you're in that situation as a parent, and this will be years in our future, right? So we're not going to have to deal with this for a while. But if you don't approve of somebody, you need to make that be known.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to sort of go along to get along. You don't want to be Mr. Nice Dad. You want to be a good dad, right? And sometimes those two things don't always line up. So if you don't approve of the boyfriend, or you think she's slutty or whatever, yeah, you need to speak up. So, and yeah, be a bad guy once in a while. It's okay. They'll get over it.
Yep.
And as Mrs. Patriarch just said, years down the line, they'll get it, right? Even if they don't understand at the time. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. We had a good crowd here, about 30 people, which is a lot for this channel. And I'm very thankful for all the super chats, guys. Wow, that was very generous. So thank you very much. For new material coming out on this channel, I will be putting together, I have put out a stream for Machiavelli, which you guys can check out, part 4 of The Prince. I'm sort of analyzing that book. If you're new to the channel, I am analyzing The Prince. So I'm trying to create the most authoritative, thorough review and analysis of The Prince on YouTube. So go check that out. Also, I will be trying to release another video sometime this week, not Machiavelli related. So I'm going to try and do one stream. I'm going to try and do one Machiavelli or book review, and I'm going to try and do one sort of just potpourri video. So that's it, guys. Thank you very much. And you take care as well, Chris. And we'll talk to you again later soon. God bless.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Patriarch out.